Hi, this is Melanie Eversley. I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the participants in the pilot version of Journalism Entrepreneurial Bootcamp. I am speaking to you from Central Park in New York City on a site that was once known as Seneca Village. It was a community of about 200 African American property owners and the only community of its kind in New York. It was raised to make room for this park. But I thought it was appropriate to speak to you from here because my project, Beyond the Railroad, is focused on educating people about news, history, and culture tied to diversity throughout the state of New York and beyond. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I was a teenager, I discovered there was a lot more to Black history throughout the state of New York than I'd been made aware. And over the years, the more I researched, the more I just became fascinated. As some of you may know, Harriet Tubman spent the last 50 years of her life in upstate New York in a small community called Auburn. She's buried there, and her descendants all live throughout upstate. Frederick Douglass published his North Star newspaper out of Rochester. It was the first such news organization of its kind. He focused on national news involving African Americans. And then there are all sorts of other people and events that have taken place throughout the state that people just don't know about. For example, Cab Calloway grew up in Rochester. Beverly Johnson is from Buffalo. Ron O'Neal, who was in Superfly, he grew up in Utica. So I decided a few years ago that I was going to, in another life, or in another chapter of my life, I was going to launch a news organization that focused on this culture and history. And I thought up the name Beyond the Railroad because everybody knows the Underground Railroad played a big role in African American life in upstate New York, but people are not aware of the other layers of culture and history and news that's taking place there. And just like in other parts of the country, news organizations in upstate, where there are a lot of impoverished communities, have been shrinking, and so the news coming out of there is even less. So Beyond the Railroad is a reference to, we're going to be bringing you news, culture, and history beyond the Underground Railroad, beyond the Pullman Porters, beyond the Great Migration, beyond life on the other side of the tracks. So I've been working on this on the side, thinking that at some point in my life I would create this news organization, and whenever my former employer, USA Today, would allow me, I would write a story. The stories would always do really well. Whenever I would create social media posts, they would do very well, and even people from New York would say, wow, I never knew this. Please keep posting this kind of stuff. So that was a sign to me that I was going in the right direction. I got laid off from USA Today in September of 2017, and I decided, you know what? I'm not going to jump right into another full-time job. I'm going to freelance and see if I can get Beyond the Railroad off the ground. So I began taking business classes because I had no clue as to the business side of running a news organization. And I found out that Columbia Business School offered free classes through the Small Business Administration, and I got a mentor through a nonprofit called the Service Corps of Retired Executives. And I did that for about a year, but I still felt that something was missing. I still didn't feel confident to just go out and launch Beyond the Railroad. I still had so many questions. So around that time, I was on Twitter and just happened to come across some messages from Philip Smith where he was indicating he was about to start the pilot version of the Journalism Entrepreneurial Bootcamp. I reached out to him right away, and I just said, please let me know what I need to do to be part of this. We stayed in touch. I applied. I was overjoyed when I got accepted, and I was about to fall out when I found out that only 5 people were selected to take part. I think one of the most useful things for me was that Philip told us to put aside our need to create content and focus just on the program. I had been just creating content like, crazy, and so that was good for me. And as you all know, a big part of this program was putting forth a hypothesis of who your readers would be or who your customers would be, how they prefer to receive news, and then going out and interviewing dozens of people to find out if your hypothesis was true or if you needed to adjust it. And I learned lots of things, not just about my coverage area, but about the people I was going to be covering. Discovered just kind of by accident that one group of early adopters, people who might be inclined to say, I have to have this product, it's going to help me live my life better, would be African American elected officials. Philip kind of helped me come to that conclusion, and when I continued to interview people, I discovered that was true. Another group of customers I discovered was people who had grown up in upstate New York and had moved away and were still living away, or had come back. They'd seen the rest of the world. They'd experienced perhaps better journalism, and they came back wanting the kind of information that they saw people in other parts of the country or world were able to get. So now I'm at a point where I'm planning to launch softly later this month. Through the clarity that I was able to get from Beyond the Railroad, I now will be, I just found out this morning that Civil is giving me a grant to help me run my organization, so I'm over the moon about that. I have followers on social media who are interacting with each other and with me now, and I've even had people asking if I'll hire them. And I've told them, when I get a budget, I sure will. But there are people who are just offering me material for free, including this one photographer in Albany who seems to be just really enamored of the idea and has just been kind of emptying out his files and giving me all kinds of stuff, including story ideas. So I am really excited. The program walked me through traction models and lean canvases, and when I initially looked at these things, I just felt that I didn't know what I was doing and I was not going to be able to get through this, but just stuck with it with Philip's support, and it was hugely helpful. And now I feel confident that I know where my readers are likely going to come from, and how they want to receive news and the types of stories they want to see. I have a home page, which is also my landing page right now. It leads to a survey. Without even trying, more than 20 people have filled it out. My plan is to run a social media ad because Philip and I concluded, once we kind of crunched all the numbers, that once I get 70 people to fill out that survey, that will be a sign that I'll be able to have enough folks to sign up and subscribe so that Beyond the Railroad will be viable. So I'm confident that's going to happen, because every day I'm getting new followers on social media and people asking about the news organization. So I'm excited. The program has taken me from someone who had no clue how I was going to get this done to somebody who sees a clear path. It's just a matter of the resources to get there. And again, the news that I got from Civil this morning is actually going to help me get there, and I wouldn't have even had that contact if it wasn't for the boot camp. So I'm really grateful, and I really hope that you all continue this program. Thank you.